The move has caused a stir in Northampton, about 70 miles north of London, as it is the first time in living memory that a shoe company is growing rather than closing.
In living memory refers to some event or situation where the range of the history is in the range of living people in living memory. Or you could say in living memory of people under 30 years old, or in living memory of most of the people in the country. As example, the Great Depression, as important as it may have been, is no longer in the living memory of most of the people in the United States. It's just something that they read about in the history books. Same with World War II. And even the Vietnam War is starting to fall outside of the living memory of most of the people in the country. So in living memory means something that took place in a time that is remembered by people who are still alive. So in this context, it's the first time in living memory a shoe company is growing rather than closing, which means that of people that are still alive, most of them are familiar with factories that make shoes closing down, but almost nobody is familiar with somebody opening up a shoe factory in the United States. Most people nowadays just know the Beatles from watching them on TV or looking at old movies or listening to their music. But Paul McCartney, he does do concerts from time to time, and he does play Beatles songs. So for many people, if they ever get to see Paul McCartney, it will be the only time in living memory that they will also get an experience of the Beatles. It's been 70 years since the end of World War II. So within not too many more years, World War II will no longer be in living memory. And before you know it, the last World War II vet will finally die. I was in a coffee shop a few weeks ago, and there were a couple of old-timers talking about the Depression. And I was really quite surprised that the Depression was actually in the living memory of people that are still alive.
Churches is also doing well in the East. Although it is now owned by Prada, an Italian luxury goods company, it sells itself as the quintessential English manufacturer.
Quintessential refers to the perfect example of something. It comes from quint, which means 5. Essential, in this sense, means essence. So it's literally means the 5th essence of something. And apparently, whenever they were coming up with these words, they would use the idea of 4 or square to be something that was sort of real. And then they would use 5 to refer to something that was super real. So in this sense, a quintessential example is an example that is so perfect that it becomes representative of the type of thing that you're referring to, representing the most perfect or typical example of a quality or class. So in this sense, Burberry sells itself as a quintessential English manufacturer based on their long-standing reputation, actually making trench coats for soldiers in the trenches in World War I. So when you buy their trench coat, you're buying the real thing, the quintessential example of a trench coat. Not too many years ago, when men used to dress more dapper, you would see quite a lot of examples of a quintessential gentleman, typically carrying a cane, a walking stick as they called it, a handkerchief. Nowadays, there's not so many quintessential examples, but one person that does seem to come to mind for a lot of people is George Clooney, who does seem to put the time into making sure he looks right when he goes out in public. James Bond is still going on. Daniel Craig, a lot of people say he's a great James Bond, and I tend to agree with him. Other people say that Sean Connery was the quintessential James Bond, but others still say that Daniel Craig is the quintessential. So who's to say? I think they're both good actors, and I think both are better than Roger Moore, in my opinion. But I'm sure there's others that would think that Roger Moore was the best.
That's all for today. Tom Taylor is an ESL tutor. He teaches English in the United States and outside, all over the world using Skype. He can be reached at his website, which is
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
Click on this link and check out his website and email with questions. Thank you, Tom, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.